to a show.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Off the Mats Podcast. And this week on the podcast, well, first off, let me go ahead and get it out the way. Happy New Year, y'all! Happy New Year! And we're not doing that New Year, new me thing because I woke up this morning. I was like, "Whew, 6 o'clock. Let's go ahead and go for a run." I went to the bathroom and went right back to sleep afterwards. So there's no new me. This is Dante. The podcast is going to be the same. So, but Happy New Year to everybody, and thank you for coming back and listening. I love you guys all. You guys are great. So this week on the podcast, though, or this year on the podcast, I want to actually welcome back the guests that I had on November of 2023, and we were on short time. So we didn't really get the, get the conversation flowing and roll. It was a good flow, but I felt like, I got so many more questions, and we didn't really get our stride, but we back. So I want to welcome back to the podcast a grappler who has an Instagram account called the Neurodivergent Grappler, and they're also a grappler themselves. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu purple belt, Miss Blue Mays. Welcome back, Blue. And how are you? Happy New Year.
Hi, thanks, Dante. I'm good. Thank you. Happy New Year's to you too.
Thank you. So looking at the account, I remember, last year, let's say 2 years ago, since we're doing numbers now, but back in 2023, when I saw the account pop up, it was something different for sure. And different in a good way, because it was drawing attention and bringing a focus on neurodiversity in grappling. And you had to take a little bit of a break from it, because I remember seeing a lot of posts and then it just kind of went away. I did actually still have a few posts saved in my queue. And oddly enough, when you reached out, I had one post set up to repost, and I was like, oh, this is perfect timing. We could just go with new content. But with you in the past year and everything, as far as grappling, and then further understanding and exploration of neurodiversity, what's been going on with that and yourself?
Yeah, sure. So towards the end of 2023 is when I received my purple belt, and all 2023 I was literally just competing all the time at blue belt and grinding. I was a blue belt for 3 years. And basically what had happened was I got burned out from competing and cutting weight all the time. I felt like truly, like, at the end of the day, I was competing for the wrong reasons. I was competing for approval. I was competing to just be able to prove to others, like, I belong here and I am good at jiu-jitsu. I won these medals. After Nogi Pans, I got gold, but I didn't feel good about it. I didn't feel like, oh my God, like, look what I accomplished. It just, like, I felt numb inside. And, through all that experience too, I did my first purple belt competition at Nogi Worlds at the end of last year. And that really, like, sent me over the edge. I had, like, a really bad panic attack prior to my first match. I was just crying, like, outside of the Las Vegas Convention Center, like, having a panic attack. And I had a friend who's a black belt just, like, try to calm me down before, and I knew, like, my body was screaming, like, I can't compete, I can't do this, but I went out there anyways and did it. I also had this feeling, this, like, weird gut feeling that, like, something was gonna go wrong, like, next year, which is 2024. I had this feeling like, man, like, my dad, I was worried about him because he's had some issues in the past. I won't go too much into that, but I just had this feeling like, oh, he's gonna get sick, or like something's gonna happen because he just hasn't been taking good care of his health. And 2024 came, and I was just so burnt out. I hated jujitsu for the first, like, 3-4 months. I was just like, F this is terrible. Like, I don't like it. I don't feel joy. Um, and my dad was like, he got diagnosed with cancer, throat cancer, and that really like threw me off. And I just was like down, and I didn't want to be on social media. It took me a lot of time and just time to spend by myself, learn more about myself, learn more about my ADHD, my mental health, just being myself. I had issues a lot with masking and not really presenting myself for who I am. So this year was really dedicated to myself and being selfish. And I have a really good friend who's a brown belt who really pushed me to teach jujitsu as a way to just get back in without having to strain my body too much and stress it out too much. So I got into teaching jujitsu like a couple times a week and assisting classes. And that's really brought so much life back into jujitsu for me. And like that curiosity started coming back and that joy started coming back. I did compete like a few times in jujitsu and purple belt, but I didn't get to accomplish what I wanted to do. But honestly, like it was good for me to rest, and I finally wanted to go back to the neurodivergent grappler because I was like, this is something special. And I know when I first started out, like I was like still figuring things out with it and what to post, and it got too stressful for me because I just wasn't managing the page very well, and like the content was kind of scattered all over the place and didn't have a theme. But that's what happens sometimes with like first iteration, and now with like the second iteration, it's much more organized and there's a theme. And I love seeing the messages from people. I realize, oh, I'm not alone in this at all. Yeah, so that's where I am. January 1st, I'm doing much better. My dad still has cancer. We're not sure how much longer he can keep up, but I'm doing much better, like body wise, mentally. So I feel much better about running this page.
Good, good. Glad
Mhm.
you're doing much better. And sometimes you need that time away. You
Yes.
know, you need to, you know, oftentimes we just need to take a step back and reassess what's in front of us and reorganize it. So I'm glad you're able to do that, because there are a lot of folks who, there's not a thought of doing that. It's more like just power through, just tough it
Yep.
out. We'll get through it. And you end up doing more harm than
Exactly.
not. So,
Exactly.
and yeah, this second iteration of the neurodivergent. See, I knew I was going to do. I knew I was going to do it. I was trying not to.
It's
I've been
okay.
practicing all day. Neurodivergent grappler. Uh,
Mhm.
the second iteration of the Instagram page, definitely has a more consistent release on it. It just seems like there's more attention coming to it as well.
Yes.
Like when you collab the post with me, whenever there's a comment, it comes to me and I see it and I'm like, this is good. I'm glad to see this, because this is something that I think in our community needs more attention. There are a lot of jokes that go around,
Mhm.
one way or the other. And, to one degree, it's, there are jokes that seem like, they mean no harm, because, you might be putting yourself down. But at the same time, it is a serious matter. It's something that, should be kind of looked at, because, whether you have ADHD, you might be on the spectrum with autism, Asperger's. Although I heard we're not supposed to use Asperger's anymore. Like
Yeah, I've
my
heard
wife,
that too.
she was
Mhm.
explaining it to me, and I was like, I don't know. But either way, that category as well. If you're, you know, living with any of those things, and then you're also doing, an activity like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it can be overwhelming, I would imagine. So I'm glad that you're back to doing this and really pumping out the content, because like aside from the content that you've actually collabed me on, I still have like 4 or 5 that I have like queued away where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna find an opportunity to reshare these. And then you'll
Mhm.
hit me and you're like, hey, I'm about to put up a post in about an hour.
Yeah,
Although yesterday you said 2 hours and it was like 10 minutes.
yeah,
And it was
sorry.
like you said 2 hours. I was like, all right, bet. Let me go ahead and get to work right now.
Yeah,
And then I see a post. I was like, oh, yo, what?
I'm sorry.
Nah, it's
That's
cool.
another thing with ADHD is that time management piece. It's still something I'm working on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was fine. I mean, it all worked out. I messaged you afterward. I was like, oh, dreads. You're like, is everything okay? I was like, nope, I got it. I got it. Like, I'm just going to reshuffle the deck real quick and everything worked out. But I'm loving the post. So, definitely, when you can and if you can, keep it up. And if you need to take a break, the
Yeah.
community, you know, there's no stress here in this community as far as
Yeah,
I know.
exactly. Yes, exactly. There really isn't. No.
Uh, so, uh, for you right now, as we enter into 2025, how do you feel in terms of, being on the mats and, dealing with that and having ADHD, as you just said, time management is one of those things. It gets a little tricky, but you find ways to navigate through it. But how are you feeling in those terms? Just moving forward on the mats.
Well, honestly, I've been feeling much better about it, and I mean, the time management piece is getting better. Something I struggle with is like executive functioning. So, part of executive functioning is the time planning piece, and also like getting things organized to go to the gym. Like that, like pre-gym routine is also difficult too because with ADHD, you just kind of get your attention kind of goes all over the place. And so I actually hired an ADHD coach to help me better plan and organize. So the first thing, if I decide to go like open mat on the weekend, make sure that I wake up a couple hours early when I'm eating breakfast, just eat breakfast and focus on that. Because what I tend to do is like I'll eat breakfast, then I'll see like, oh, there's something on the floor, pick it up, put it in the laundry. Oh, I didn't do this load of laundry. Then do the load of, then I forget to eat the breakfast, and it's already like 9 o'clock. I'm like, oh crap, like I need to get to class early, and then I'm running late. And I don't give myself too much of a hard time for being late or anxiety about it. If I'm late, I'm late. Also, I'm a purple belt, so it's okay for me to be late and skip warm-ups. But that's really what's helped is just not being too hard on myself. And then sitting there just like contemplating, oh my God, like they're gonna hate me, they're gonna be upset with me. Like the post I made with unhelpful thinking patterns. When I first started jujitsu, I would sit in my car before, like I'd show up early, but I would sit in my car forever just like thinking what are they going to think about me. I would rehearse what to say. I would think like, do I look weird, like are they going to know I'm like ADHD or autistic? Like I don't even know if I have autism, but I haven't been diagnosed. So I just would have these thoughts and like blame myself. Even before coming in, I would assume the situation. And there's still times that I go to like an open mat. Most recently I struggled to go, there's a gym in Denver that's like very good, and like they opened in like 2020. They've been open for 4 years, and like they're turning out killers and all this stuff. And now I'm like a purple belt. And one time I went to their open mat, I'm just sitting there in my car. I'm just like, oh my God, I don't belong here. I should not go in there. Everyone's gonna freaking murder me. But I just took a deep breath, and I'm like, I can't assume, I can't really control what they think of me. I just show up and just be myself. And that's really helped with like being present on the mats.
Yeah, the I still kind of sit in the car and do that as well.
Mhm.
I don't know.
That's a
Like it's
common
still
thing. That's a common thing. Like I spoke to another woman about this, and she told me, she disclosed to me she has autism too, and that she's also purple belt. And she told me like, oh, I sometimes sit in my car too and don't want to get out. And like sometimes when I roll, like I dissociate and I don't, I kind of am not there and I blank out. And that's like a coping mechanism. for some neurodivergent people. Sometimes they just like, it's not even, it's more than spacing out, but you just dissociate and you're like out of your body.
The I you know I do what I said earlier. A lot of folks do is like I power through it,
Right.
uh, which it gets weird because I've been at this gym coming up on 10 years now. All the
Hmm.
same people. There should never really be any of those nerves, you would think, but every time I go in, I always feel like same thing. It's like, man, like what are they gonna think? I have a McDojo Life gi, and I love it. It says McDojo Life right across, and I've gotten positive feedback about it. But there are times where I wear it, and I'm like, ugh, they're gonna like think, oh, look at this guy, this ass clown, and yeah, it's weird, but I get exactly what you're saying. In those terms, I still do, but I used to have a panic attack every single time I go on the train. It's not as aggressive now. When my wife would drop me off at class, I actually wouldn't have a panic attack because I'd be talking with her on the way in, and I guess it's kind of a distraction.
Hmm.
So I'd go in and be perfectly fine. But if I go in by myself, I'll sit there in that car for like 10 minutes, and just freak out and then go in and, act like everything's cool. Like, hey guys, what's going on? Like,
Right.
how are things? And none would know unless they, rolled up on the car, which if somebody rolls up on the car and I'm in the middle of a panic attack, then we got a whole different problem. Then we're like,
Right.
it's confirmed. You guys think I'm weird and you're following me.
Hmm.
You mentioned the ADHD coach.
Hmm.
That's like I did not know that was even a thing. How did you find out about them?
Yeah. So there's like a foundation or like a ADHD coach association or something like that. I don't know what it's exactly called, but I actually found that resource through my last job, when one of my managers mentioned to me about it because he also has ADHD. Uh, but I was just so surprised that I didn't know he had ADHD, and he's in a managerial position, um, and so he told me more about that. I looked into it. He has a ADHD coach, and the coach is also like a career coach as well. So they help you navigate the careers and really help you task manage, strategizing, um, focusing, not necessarily focusing, but just setting your intentions to do one thing at a time. The problem with ADHD is that oftentimes, like, we're just not stimulated enough, but we need to make this active decision to be like, I'm going to jujitsu class. What I need to do before that is I need to pack my gi, I need change of clothes, I need to eat breakfast, and I need to do XYZ. The issue lies when, okay, I get up at 9, like I said before, I eat my breakfast, I look on the floor, there's laundry on the floor. I pick it up. I go to do the laundry. Oh crap, I need to dry this laundry. Oh, I need to do this new load of laundry. Then you get distracted. Then you look at your phone and then go on your Instagram and look at, and before you know it, it's already like 30 minutes and your breakfast is sitting there cold. So part of it is like you kind of do have to fight through a little bit with that attention and just sit there and say, I'm going to eat breakfast right now. I'm going to put my phone over there. I'm not going to look anywhere. If I see laundry on the floor, I'll deal with it later. So you have to constantly tell yourself, okay, I need to do this. And that's what the coach really helps me with, is like setting those intentions. And like I only had one session with her so far. And the session I had with her was about, I just moved into my house like 2 months ago, and I still had these tubs with my shoes in it. And I'm in my office right now, but my home office is still like a mess. But I was just like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed by this. Like, there's so much stuff going on. And she told me, okay, we need to dial it down to like one thing only. What's one thing you could do? And I'm like, okay, the shoes are all in one tub, so I could get the shoes out. So I did that task, just taking the shoes out. And then there were those distractions with like, oh my God, there's laundry on the floor. My bed's not made. But I just kept at it with the shoes. And then finally I got the shoes all out and into a drawer, or sorry, into my closet and into a shoe rack. So that's how, like I like organize myself, and like how the jujitsu, not the jujitsu, sorry, the ADHD coach helped. Mhm.
It reminds me of a book I used to read to my students when I used to teach. If you give a mouse a cookie, and it's basically that, it's like if you give a mouse a cookie, they're going to probably want a glass of milk. If you give them milk, then they're going to want this. Then if you give them this, they're going to want this.
Mhm.
And it tracks the whole book, and then it comes all the way back around to, and then chances are they're going to want a cookie. So, as you're saying this, is like I'm thinking about that book, and then I'm also thinking about how when I'm in this basement trying to clean up, the same thing happens. It's like, all right, I got to dust, so I start taking my action figures down. Start to dust, and I'm like, ooh, but I need to repose this group over here, or maybe I want this group of Avengers now. So I want to like maybe set up now, sit down on my phone. It's like, who was in this team though? Because like I don't think I have all the pieces. And then I'll look and it's like, ooh, I'm missing 3. Let me go to Amazon. And I'm going to order those 3. Oops, I can't order that one because that one's not available. But let's go to eBay. And I go to eBay. Ooh, by the way, I need to buy some comic books because I want to get that first appearance of X-23. That's $400. Well, I don't have that. So let's see. Let's go find some books to sell so I can. And it
Yeah.
becomes this whole thing. So
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and that's so common with like ADHD people, and so that's why I like show up late oftentimes, and I'm getting better at showing up on time. But even today, I showed up late, like 5 minutes late for class, but
mm,
that's better than usual.
you're a purple belt, though. Are you really getting
Yeah.
better at showing up on time? Because from what I hear with purple belts, it's like, yeah, I'm getting better. And then the day that they like, hey, I'm here on time. See, like, oh, you guys started early. Drats. Oh, well.
Oh no. Yeah. A big part of it is just like not beating yourself over for it. And then also just having gratitude so of like all the things you've accomplished. I think we get as neurodivergent people, I don't think it matters if you have autism or ADHD or other disorders. But one thing I know is that we tend to beat ourselves up pretty bad and have really unhealthy thinking patterns. And part of that is like we need to rewire that to say like, oh, I have accomplished a lot of things. I was able to organize my furniture. Despite the mess I have, I built a bed frame. I did all these things. I need to look at those accomplishments. And it's just even neurotypical people too. It's just like, we tend to focus on the negatives and be like, oh my God, I didn't even dust. Like I'm so pathetic. Like I'm so lazy. But instead, like you dusted, like maybe you dusted one area already a little bit. Okay, I did that. All right, that's great. Mhm.
I wonder though too sometimes with that, if there's, if that tracks back to like, it's like you did very well with something, but then, it's like there's no recognition for it, so you feel like you didn't do well.
Right.
Like little kids, it's like, hey, look at the, this structure I built with the Legos, and it's like that's really cool, and it is really cool, but in their head, they're like, oh well, you know it's just cool though. I think it's better. And that's something that tracks, it kind of sticks with you,
It
as you
does.
get older. So, when
Mhm.
again you dust it, it's like, oh, I dust over here and this looks good, but then you did do the work and then but you beat yourself up because you're like, oh, my God, you're so lazy. Like no,
Mhm.
but you're working, but there's that tick in the back of your head that
Right.
knows you like you can always do better, which is something I always feel like we have, especially with jujitsu. It's like as a competitor as well. It's like,
Right.
you got silver, or let's say you even got gold, but it's like, yeah, but 2 of those matches I won on points.
Yeah.
I could have won. I could have submitted them. I should have.
Yes. And that's just like the post I made this week with like the unhelpful thinking styles. Like you're minimizing your positives and you're just like magnifying the negatives. And that's pretty typical, and that does happen. And then like you compare yourself to other people too and be like, oh my God, like she has 2 kids and she got gold in open class too. Oh my God, I'm terrible. I don't even have kids. And like you don't know other people's life too. Like you don't know other people's circumstances and what they were born with and the resources they have. We just don't think in that way a lot of times. And it's easier said than done to reframe. And especially coming from me, I used to be like the most negative person ever. I had no friends before I started jujitsu. I was just literally working all the time, going home. I never went out. Like I didn't have a social life. I didn't have anything. To now where I have a much healthier social life, a hobby, and a much healthier mindset. But you know, it takes time to build that. It's just like working out at the gym. Like you have to start saying those positive things. You have to start like once you start like say you did like a roll and you just got beat up and tapped like 4 times. Okay, you know, like instead of saying like, oh my God, I tapped 4 times, I'm such a loser, or like I suck, like my jujitsu is terrible. You know, reframe it and think like, well, I did get out of his mount, or I was able to open up his guard and pass. I I was able to do X, Y, and Z. Or maybe you come into the gym with a goal and be like, I'm gonna work bottom today and do lasso and see if I can sweep somebody. If you have those types of goals that are flexible and like more loose and not like you have to, or like you must, you should have a good open guard. That's not going to help you. So keep reframing. I started just doing like positive affirmations about myself and like wrote it on a piece of paper and I read it out loud and it's silly, but it works.
I mean, I think that's the thing though too. If it works, I don't think it's really silly. I mean, it's
Hmm.
definitely helpful if it's working for you. It,
Yeah.
what works for you is your thing. Somebody on the outside might be like, dude, that's really weird. Like, well,
Yeah.
then it
Who
doesn't work
cares?
for you, homie.
Yeah. It doesn't. They have to find, everyone has to find their way and what
Yeah,
works for them. And part of that is like experimenting. And I know like there's people who are like hesitant to doing that. But part of wanting to change your circumstances and situation is being uncomfortable
absolutely.
and also
Um,
accepting yourself.
yeah, I think that's a big thing too, is accepting yourself. You know, I see that in my daughter right now, whereas like she's 8 and she's trying to figure out her personality, and little things will set her off. And
Mhm.
it's like you try to remind her that it's just like not it doesn't have to be perfect. You're learning, like and I say this on the mats too, when we're learning a new move or something and we don't get it right away, because there's a lot of that. It's like, oh, like I'm just no good at this. It's like, dude, this is the first time you're trying this move. Like, what are you expecting? I say that with my daughter as well, which then I have to remind myself. It's like, oh, we got to invert. Oh, we're doing Kiss of the Dragon. Like, this isn't for me. This isn't my move. I can't do this. It's like, dude, you've only tried it twice in your life ever. Like,
Right. Right.
like, give it some time. So I
Exactly.
get you.
Exactly.
Um, at the gym right now with you, where you train at, do you have like open conversations with teammates about neurodiversity and your role in it on the mats?
Um, yeah, from time to time, you know, like I presented with like a sense of humor with it and like lightheartedness about like my ADHD, and I think it's allowed people to open up more about it. I've told my professor about like the difficulties I have with my learning, because for me, like it took so long for me to pick up the techniques, and then also my coordination wasn't great either, and just the spatial awareness. That's another thing with like being neurodivergent too, is the spatial awareness difficulties. So I had issues with that, and it took me longer than maybe a little bit longer than typical, to like climb up the ranks and also like really understand and get the technique. But the good thing with the ADHD was just like being able to like it was just like I had fun like finding new things and like connecting the dots that way. But yeah, like talking to people at my gym about it, it's allowed people to open up more. I've had like people come to me at open mats. I had like someone talk to me at like a year ago at like grappling industries, and they're like, "You're the neurodivergent girl, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, thank you. That's so cool that you're doing that." Um, so that makes me happy that people like they don't feel alone in that, and like they don't feel like they have to mask around me. I think like sometimes the first time someone meets me, they think like, "Oh, I have to behave a certain way." I think that's for anybody like meeting someone new, like, "Oh, I don't know," like like walking on eggshells. But I try to be lighthearted all the time, and I always say I always blame things on my ADHD. I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention, ADHD." Um, Even just yesterday, I was like, I kind of spaced out a little bit with like instruction. I'm like, "What? Like, I don't know. Explain it to me again." But I make it lighthearted, and then I think just the tone at my gym is always like joking and people having fun, and it's not like a super serious culty place. So I think that's what really matters is like the setting.
That's really, really important in training, just, without
Mhm.
any kind of neurodiversity at all. It's just having a good gym to train at. Now you factor that in, and it sounds like it's a great recipe for success for you moving forward. So that's good. There's some gyms, this is like super serious. You can't smile. You can't, you can't have a good time. Meanwhile, they tell you like, "Oh, we're here to have a good time." It's like, dog, I don't feel like I'm having
Yeah,
a good time.
yeah, and
I'm scared.
that's hard for someone like who, might have autism. Like they a lot of times like they like the facial cues, social cues, like sometimes they take it at like the word like for what it's like what the word what they're saying, like at face value, they take that. And so like they don't know like nuances. Sometimes it's not that they don't know, but it's harder for them to gauge that nuance. So it makes them a lot more vulnerable.
Sure.
And then there's this pattern that starts being like, okay, this, like especially if you're in a gym that has that sort of culture that's toxic, then they start blaming you and being like, why don't you be like this? And then that unhelpful thought patterns start happening. And then they start getting scared to go to the gym. And then maybe they eventually leave and start the new gym. And then they don't trust anybody at the new
Yeah.
gym.
Yeah, that's definitely a pattern that, it's scary
It is.
because, once that trust foundation starts to just get chipped away at, you'll never try anything then if you don't, if you have that foundation of mistrust just dating back. So it's good
Right.
that you're at a gym that gives you that comfort and freedom as
Yeah,
well.
exactly. Exactly. That's what, I hope everyone, whether they're neurodivergent or neurotypical, that they find that space. It is hard, sometimes, the first time you go to the gym, you're a white belt and you're starting out. Sometimes the first gym you start at, it's just doesn't fit, but you stay there maybe a little bit longer than you're supposed to. And it takes a lot for you to leave, and especially for us folks like we're used to the routine and like the comfort of the routine and being at that same gym because it's predictable, it's going to happen. You see the same people even though they're just tolerating you. You know what to expect at least. But then when you change over to a new gym, like you don't know what to expect. So there's that scary factor there, and then having to be vulnerable again and you're scared of getting hurt again. So it is scary. It's a risk. It's a risk for any new people or even like a seasoned person like myself, like a purple belt. Like, oh, if I were to ever change gyms, like it's still scary.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, you know, as a blue belt, coming into, where you're currently at, and just wondering, going into that situation, there had to bend those nerves because like I always said, I feel like as a blue belt, it's like you're still kind of like you're just white belt with a little bit of spice, you know.
Exactly. Yep.
So there's still that, you're still learning, you're still trying to, develop your game and figure yourself out. So it's like thinking it's like, well, if you switch gyms at blue belt, it's almost kind of like you get to that new gym and it's kind of like, well, you're still far enough back where we can kind of restructure you. And it's like,
Right.
yes, you're blue belt, on appearance because you have the belt, but we're treating you like a white belt because we
Yeah.
got to rebuild you, if you will.
Right. Exactly. And that's the situation that happened with me when I changed gyms. So I changed gyms like 4 times. And it was really hard for me to find a place where I finally felt like, okay, I belong here and people actually like me. And I feel that was the first time I felt like free in a way, like I didn't feel so constricted. And like the gym I was at prior to this gym, like I really thought it was a good fit, but there was some things that happened there that were pretty unhealthy, and like from like leaders doing things that were not healthy to like another there was a female student who like I think she saw me as like competition or something and I thought she was my friend, and that's another thing with like neurodivergence and like being taken advantage of. Not saying neurotypical people don't get taken advantage of, but we just are more susceptible to it because we just don't catch the cues and the nuances. So I didn't catch the nuance that like this woman does not like me. I didn't know that she didn't like me. I thought she did, but like then I hear like, oh, she's talking crap about you or something. I'm like, what? What did I do? So eventually I left that gym and train at the gym I am at now. But prior to that, like I started going to the gym that I go to now for gi training because the previous school there was gi, but no one would show up. Literally, no one would show up. Like in the evening, there was like 2 people, but oddly, like people showed up to the 6 a.m. classes. Like majority of people showed up to the 6 a.m. And like, what the heck? Like I can't get up that early. Like this is crazy. Um, so I started to kind of like wean myself off that school and going to the other school, and like I started to just build a rapport, and I knew of the professor a little bit. And just started talking to them more and more. And then I decided, like, I had a conversation with the previous professor of the school I left, and I said I'm leaving. Was professional, left, and then came in. I already built a good rapport with that gym, and I talked to the professor about like I want to get to purple, but what do you guys, what requirements do you guys have? Like, what do you want to see in your students? Like, I've been a blue belt at that point like 2 years, so I was like, okay, it's gonna be another year at blue. That's okay, but like I came in there serious about like wanting to get to that level, like what it would take. So I did everything I had to do to get to that point. But prior to that, just like building rapport with that gym helped to make the transition easier.
Yeah, that's one thing I think, is very, very, very important is that rapport with your coaches, and, not just the coaches, but like, again, your teammates, but, you have to have some kind of, connector there with the coaches and understanding of what they want from you. And I would imagine, again, being ADHD, you know, that's got to be kind of tricky too, because again, some of the cues you just don't pick up on,
Hmm.
and you think, because I know I've never been diagnosed with ADHD, but like, like there are
Yeah.
times where I'm like, I should, maybe address this. I'm like, we made it this far. Let's
Hmm.
just keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
But there are times where, like, I always say with my coach, I feel awkward around him.
Hmm.
When I do talk to him, I'm like, oh, I don't know what to say. Like, or after we talk, I'm like, oh, did I really just say that?
Yeah.
Ugh, that guy thinks he's probably thinking like, why do we keep this guy at this gym?
Yeah.
But but he's probably not thinking that, you
No,
know.
he's probably not. Yeah, most people don't think too much about other people. And I got really into like, well, I have a degree in psychology, but I didn't quite understand like the impact of like studying that, but I started to just study it more on my own and kind of looked into like different things people do. And most of the time, like most people are just concerned with themselves. They'll probably think for a second, like, oh wow, man, Blue says something dumb. And then they just kind of move on to it, because most people are busy with their lives. They have kids or pets or house things to do. And if you really like sit down and think about yourself, like for a second, and just think like, how often do I think about so and so, or not really, not that much. Like
Mm.
we're concerned with our lives, really. Like I don't think about, like if I really think hard, I don't even remember, like I can't think on the top of my head like something embarrassing someone did. Like I have to think like really hard. It just kind of like goes like out of my head. So I like to think that like most people don't think about me in that way. And if they do, then like they're not my problem. They're not really of my concern anyways.
Yeah, I was just talking to a friend the other day, trying to get them to come back to the podcast because it's been a while, and they've had some life changes, and they brought up the ideal of, you know, well, I've lost a lot of Instagram followers, and um, I also, don't think anybody, wants to hear my story anymore. Just these life changes that have taken place. And
Hmm.
I reminded, them, I was like, honestly, I don't think people are thinking about it. Like, and I tried to say in kind of the nicest way possible. I was like, nobody cares, you
Yep.
know. And I think the big point that I was trying to make to them was like, you're my friend. I want you on the podcast because I want to talk to my friend. I'm not concerned about, whether people listen to the episode or not. I mean, that does factor. I mean, that's why we put the content out. But really, it's just I want to sit down and talk to my friend and share your story. But in reality, most people, if it's not in front of them, yeah, they're not really thinking about it. They don't care.
Right.
Uh, like, I always say I don't get embarrassed. I get nervous,
Yes.
and I'm worried about, doing something silly, but I don't get embarrassed in the idea of like, other than with coach when I say something completely unhinged and it's like, oh boy, like they're probably going to make a phone call right now. But like in most cases, it's like if I trip and fall,
Hmm.
I'm not worried about it. I'm like, oh, like I tripped the other day in the mall, and
Yeah.
it was a bad trip. Like, like it looked like that might have been. I saw my life flash before my eyes, and once I caught my balance, I giggled about it. I was like, ooh, that was almost the death of me. Kind of like
Yeah.
to let people know, like, hey, I know I tripped. I know you saw it, but we're gonna keep moving. But it's like when it comes to like the ideal of like what other people think, I do find it, like you said, most people aren't really thinking about, you know, anything outside themselves. Most
Right.
people aren't.
Right.
I do sometimes, not like what other people are doing, but like I think, I remember things. It's like I always remember like first encounters because I'm a comic book fan. So the big thing in comic books is like first appearances. So I always look at people kind of like that. Like what was the first thing I remember about that person? But then after that, I might remember the first encounter, but chances are I won't remember your name. So,
Hmm.
there's always those quirky things that take place. But, you know, ultimately, where you end up in your place training wise and just team wise, with your rapport, you know, I think it sounds like it worked out perfect for you, you know,
Hmm. It did.
versus like you said, you switched, gym several times and, those just weren't your fits, but I'm glad you found your forever home.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I did, want to ask, with the ADHD, when it comes to learning your techniques and everything, because I, I had a problem as well. Like again, I think I probably should go get checked out. But like I said, I've come this far. Like we just gonna gun this boy towards the rocks now. But there'll be times, I'll miss a technique.
Mhm,
Just the lights are on, but no one's home. I'm looking. I'm even like nodding my head, like, oh yeah, I can do this.
mhm.
When it's go time, I'm like, hey, white belt, you got to show me how to do this. Not because you need to show me, but I want to make sure you know what you're doing. Nah, I just didn't remember. But do you ever record, the techniques, that coach is
Mhm.
showing, and also just not even necessarily your rounds, but yourself drilling the technique too?
Yes, I do record it sometimes. Not most of the time I don't record. Um, but what I do that has worked is like drilling the movement over and over, and then also like sequencing the movement together with something else. So if I'm like, like drilling, let's say, I don't know, like let's say a pass, like a guard pass, open guard passing, right? So, like if the technique is like just drill knee cut, but I'm looking at more like I've been hearing this a lot, like more of an ecological model where it's like, okay, like give me some resistance and like, what would you do on the bottom? So if they respond to my knee slice that I'm trying to drill, and then they do something else, and I'm like, okay, I could pressure pass, or I could do like a I don't know, Toriano, I don't know, X pass, whatever. Um, that's helped actually with my learning. Um, because it challenges me to like see other routes too, and not be hyper focused on I gotta do knee slice, knee slice, knee slice. And I think at this point, like with being a purple belt, I think it helps to drill in that set sense. Like instead of being like I'm gonna drill one thing, unless it's something that I'm new at and learning. So for me, like leg locks are something I struggle with. So I've been working at that and drilling it with my friend from time to time. And I don't have like a strict deadline. Again, that's a thing that doesn't help people who are neurodivergent having like I must successfully execute heel hooks by the end of my purple belt, or else I should not get my brown belt. That's not cool. That doesn't help you. Instead, just be like short term, like I'm going to drill heel hooks for 10 minutes. I'm going to do the heel hook defense for 10 minutes. And that's actually helped a lot because I'm putting in more of a quality input rather than the quantity. So like yesterday I drilled with my friend just like heel hooks and straight ankle locks and toe holds for like 20, 30 minutes. And I feel like I got more out of that than, like trying to be strict about and be like, I need to do heel hooks. I must do it 3 times a week. Mhm.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Uh, do you find it challenging to watch technique videos, or like, or are you more of a hands-on learner, like you're just saying doing the drill and
Yeah.
worked better for you in that way?
Yeah. I'm definitely more of a tactile person. So I definitely need to like drill it. Like I'll watch the movement, but then executing it, that becomes a bit difficult. So I have to drill it. I watch and then I need to drill. Sometimes like things I like with now being a purple belt, I should be like black belt level at something, at some maybe one thing. I'm like really, really good at it. Um, so like maybe like my specific, like I got really good at knee slice. So that's something like if I see that, I could do it like really easily. But things like, like I watch, leg lock videos and I have to like replay it like 50 times just to try to capture maybe like the nuance of the technique and the concepts. That's like hard for me to understand. Um, but like one one person that I really like to watch is his name. It's Jordan does jujitsu because
Yeah,
I really love how he explains and walks through the concepts instead of focusing on a technique. Like he has like an open guard, like how to pass guard video, but instead of being like we're gonna do this knee slice pass or we're gonna do a toriando, instead he focuses on like okay, so if you want to pass guard, make sure that the person on the bottom, their feet doesn't connect to you. Kill the feet. There's the feet. Okay, kill the knees, then pass the hips. Because what I used to do in the past was just like try to go straight to the hip. There's like layers to it. And that's something that I needed is like explicit instructions to get to pass. So that's what's helped me is like really explicitly explain videos. Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, my coach sometimes will kind of explain, yeah, there's a system to it, to the movement, you,
Hmm.
you can't get to you can't get to C if you don't address A, you know.
Right.
So it's like, and that's helped me. I been it kind of happened on accident. I started recording coach doing the techniques, and I guess he's noticed now. So now when he's explaining, he's looking directly at me or my camera at least. I'm like,
Hmm.
huh, okay. Now I get it. You noticed that I'm doing this, so I guess I got to do it every week now. So like
Nice.
it's almost kind of like expected of me. But it like looking at the videos don't help. But writing notes while
Yes,
looking at the videos
that
help.
helps. Yes, that's really helpful. And like the Jordan Does Jiu-Jitsu videos help because he does a really good job along with the imagery, and that helps me process it. So now, like when I'm executing guard passes now, I don't just go like, oh, let me dive past the hip real quick. No, like the first thing I notice is the feet. Always like feet. He mentioned don't let them grab your collar. So I'm always like protecting, especially in the gi, like protect my collar. Don't let them have 4 points of contact, even 3 points of contact. No, that's not good. So I'm always like aware of that. Kill the feet. Um, and those principles like really helped me a lot with my guard passing, and it's gotten like significantly better because of his videos. So that's like one example of like a video or series of videos that's helped me.
Good, good. The I think about the protecting your lapels a lot because I just put up a video the other day of me getting collar dragged 3 different times. It was more so like my greatest hits of 2024, and it was really just me getting like decimated constantly, whether it be a sweep or a collar drag. I think there were 3 collar drags. So you saying, hey, protect those collars. I'm like, huh,
Yeah.
2025,
Yep.
new year, new me, right?
Yep.
Right. Um, but good. Like I like Jordan's content a lot as well.
Hmm.
So I have a bunch of his stuff in my queue. So
Yeah. It's really
uh,
good.
as a neurodivergent grappler, like what's some advice you would say to a coach to make the environment more welcoming, not to just yourself but other individuals, in the same kind of sphere.
I would say listen to your students and don't just, take things at face value. When someone comes in and they're timid and they're kind of shut down, maybe, and they're shy and they might have difficulties talking to you and they're shut down, perhaps they're intimidated by the environment. They're perhaps intimidated by you and your how you posture yourself. So maybe think about like how you appear to your target audience too, like if your gym's all like I've been to gyms where it's like very pro cop. I don't have anything against police, like pro military, pro cop, like they had posters up like like you gotta train hard. I don't like those types of things like matter, because like when they walk in, like they don't come in like there's people who don't feel empowered by that, but perhaps that's not the right gym for them then, so it's like a very was it symbiotic, is that the right word? I think that is symbiotic relationship where
Yes.
like okay, the customer has to find the right place, and then also like it's the owner and the coach's choice to have that culture. If they don't want people like me in that gym and they're just like very like aggro, like manly, super masculine, that's the audience they want, that's fine. That's the business owner's choice. Um, but listen, if you're already established and then like, your business is struggling, maybe listen to your students and listen to what they have to say. Make changes. You don't have to make like quick changes and like overhaul everything, but maybe like incremental little changes at a time. Maybe a student tells you like, oh, like this lighting, like it's hurting. Like I feel I don't really like it. Is there a way maybe you can accommodate and change it? Oh, the music's so loud. It's like blaring. Like I can't focus. Like, I was at a gym too where it's like the music was too loud. So they started lowering the volume on the music. And then every time the coach instructed, someone would go to a tablet and like put the music down, and then like the retention's gotten better. I don't think it's purely just because of that, but like they're listening. So
Yeah.
listen to your students. Mm-hmm.
I think that's extremely important too. Like you said, it's a symbiotic relationship there that, as they do something, it is only going to benefit the students. And if it benefits the students, it's just, it all works together.
Right.
Oh,
You don't want to, what is it? Not isolate, push out, students you already have and are established. It's like, reminds me of like some restaurants, like they have their like, customers that come all the time. And then all of a sudden you like change up the menu so you can attract like a different market and like a bunch of young people. And then you're basically like isolating those older customers that come in, and then you start losing money because those young people are like, like we don't care.
okay.
Yeah.
I,
So
I, I get, I get
yeah,
you.
sorry. So good.
Like if
I
they
want them to
if
get
they like change up the tacos or something at the
yeah,
restaurant.
yeah, why?
Gotcha.
It worked. Mhm.
Like don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And for anyone that's neurodivergent, wanting to get into jujitsu, what's something you would suggest for them before stepping onto the mats?
Yeah, so, I think look at the reviews, but like take it with a grain of salt, because a lot of times what I notice with like the reviews is like it is very biased, and especially with this community, it's small, so you're not going to see too many negative reviews because then like it kind of ostracizes that person. And unfortunately, we right now live in that society where it's like, okay, the negative reviews, like that makes that person look bad rather than the gym right now. So what I would do is just like, if you have a couple gyms interested, look at the reviews, read them, like maybe find some keywords that you're looking for, like if they're like friendly, accommodating, whatnot. Um, Try, most gyms offer maybe like a week free. Like try it for a week and come at different times if you're like able to, if your schedule's flexible enough, come in the morning and see what the vibe is. Because morning crew versus night crew, it's like 180 different. Like they're not the same. They're not the same people. And it's not the same coach usually teaching morning and night. So it's a different vibe, right? So sometimes, you might you'll fit in with the morning crew, and then you come in the nighttime, you're like, what the hell? Like it's totally different vibe. It's the same gym, but it's like, who are you? So it's a different vibe. So try to go in the morning and then go in the night. But if you're not flexible and like you can only come in the evenings or in the mornings, okay, that's fine. Just show up for like the week and see if it works. Just communicate with the coach or like the owner that like, hey, I'm just trying this out. I just moved here. I don't know. I just want to try jujitsu out, and I, yeah. Just be open and honest. You don't have to tell them like I have autism and ADHD and all the. You don't need to tell them that. But just come in and just like communicate what you're looking for. It's okay if you don't know what you're looking for either, but just like if something feels off and your guts tell, don't push it. Just be like, okay, this is not right for me. Even if you can't explain it and it feels uncomfortable, then pause and walk away. But sometimes too, like, you like sometimes it's distinguishing between, are you uncomfortable because this is new, or are you uncomfortable because like the vibe's off too? So like kind of learning to like separate those two, because jujitsu is uncomfortable. But if they're coming off really uncomfortable and you feel like this is a culty gym, I don't like it. Read on their policies too if you can, and like their uniform policies. If they're like, we only wear show-year-old white gis and that's it, and you have to buy our gis only, and you can only wear our rash guard. Maybe that's not the right place. Maybe it is the right place for someone else, because someone else likes that structure and routine, and they want it structured to the point where it's like the uniforms match and whatnot. Some people are like that. That's okay. So you just have to try different schools. Maybe try like 3 in the area if you can. Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
Talk to the students too. Talk to the students too. Partner up with like more experienced students. Talk to maybe like some of the white belts you see and ask them their experience so far. Like, what do you like about it? And yeah. And then this is for like women too. Like if you see more higher belt women in the gym too, usually that's a good sign.
Yeah.
And all ages too. Like if you see people from different walks of life and different age range, that's usually a good sign too.
I was thinking about that earlier too. It's like, going to different gyms. It's like if you see a gym that's, there's only a handful of women, like you like when I say handful, I mean like 1 or 2. It's like, tread lightly, versus like you go to a gym and you see like, 4 purple belt, 2 brown belts, 3 black belts. I'm trying to think, I don't even know if we have any white belt women at our gym anymore, but yeah, I definitely think that's sound advice. One last thing I want to ask before we wrap up is, like, last time we kind of went on a shorter time. So I was like, my goal was to make sure like we go past that time, just to make it seem like that was like a typical thing for you. It's like only Blue does 35-minute episodes.
No.
Why is that? Because usually if I have a guest for 35 minutes, it's usually by my choice, because I'm like, yeah, let's wrap this shit up.
Yeah.
And then I never talk to them again. I was like, hey, I'm trying to come back on. Yeah, I gotta go wash my fish, man. I'm busy. I got shit to do.
Yeah.
But so the object was like let's get past that 35-minute mark. We're well beyond that. But with the Instagram page, neurodivergent. I did it again.
It's okay.
Let me slow down. Neurodivergent grappler. Going into 2025, we're seeing a lot of good movement on it and everything, and growth. Do you have any specific plans or hopes for it in this coming year?
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier too. Like, what do I hope for this page? Like, what can be done? Maybe eventually it would be cool to have my own podcast.
I was just thinking it.
That'd be cool. Or like maybe some sort of merch. But I don't know. Like I just bought like a jujitsu journal, and I'm like trying to think like, well, what else can I do? Like maybe to help people, and also like help myself as well. Like bring the page up, and I'm wondering like what sort of resources can I provide? What sort of things can I provide? Are there like instructionals that I could make? Are there like programs that I could create? There's a lot of these like what I'm seeing now is a lot of like jujitsu mental model programs, or like jujitsu like coaching and all that stuff. But like, is there like a neurodivergent twist I can put into it? Some sort of journal, some sort of, I don't know, online thing, videos. So like there's a lot of possibilities. I mean, for now, I'm just taking it day by day. Eventually, like when it grows, like my next goal is like, my next milestone is like, I hope I could get to like 5,000 followers. And then at that point, okay, what's next? So that's some of the ideas I'm thinking. It would be cool, like, like in the future, like it'd be cool, like sponsor an athlete or two. But also, like I thought about with my ADHD, I'm like thinking about all these things. Like, well, I don't want them to like, if they don't feel comfortable saying they have autism, they don't feel comfortable saying they have auditory processing, all these other, they have anxiety, things like that. Because, you know, it is hard to disclose those things because we still live in a society where, you know, like they see where autism is a disability, ADHD is a disability. Um, they don't want to expose themselves because like their company or whatever, like they don't want that. But like if people are willing to be vulnerable and be like, okay, I have this condition, I want to be sponsored, and maybe like, but then I'm thinking like, where do I get the money from? And you know, this stuff. So who knows? But I'm just taking it day by day.
Well, that's how you do it though, one step at a time. And
Yeah.
and trust me, I get it. There are times I'll sit down with my laptop and I have pages upon pages opened up with a billion different ideas for. I have three podcasts plus BJJ Wiki, and I'm like, I gotta do all these things for all four of these projects, and I got all these ideas, and I got all the energy. And
Mm-hmm.
then again, I get sidetracked. Oh shit, I got to,
Is that
I got to
ADHD?
really rearrange that Brotherhood display up there on the shelf right
Yeah.
now,
Yes.
because
Yes.
that has happened.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
but yeah, definitely, anything that I can do to help, for sure, let me know. I'm always here for the collabs. Uh,
Thank you.
so I fully support, what you're doing with the page,
Thank
because
you.
I do think that the more attention that's put on this, the
Mm-hmm.
more comfortable people are about opening up. You know,
Yeah.
I've seen some of the comments where people were, really, really receptive of the post. I
Mm-hmm.
saw one guy make a comment. I don't think it was necessarily meant to be negative,
Mm-hmm.
but I kind of personally, like, I wanted to reply to him, but I was like, it might have been one of the reposts that I did actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I really wanted to reply and be like, look, dude, like, I get it,
Yeah.
but not everything pertains necessarily to you. There's a bigger world. But then I thought, like, what he said wasn't necessarily negative, but it's just the way that I perceived it. It's like relax, dude. So, and then
Yeah.
I told myself to relax after. I was like, Dante, relax. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
That dude's probably pouring his heart out, and you're
He
about to
might be,
attack him.
yeah. He might be. Yeah. You never know too. Like, um, that's why it's like this is kind of sensitive sometimes because some people do use like either humor or like to deflect or like negativity or like they just discriminate against themselves to come across as quote unquote normal because they
Mhm.
don't want to be like pointed out as like that's the autistic guy. That guy's fucking weird. Yeah. but yeah, I mean, I think people have different ways to cope through, and then there's people with so many different backgrounds, and like we're a lot of people grew up, you know, believing like that's the worst thing you could be is like, you know, like have autism, um, especially autism. Like we just hear so many negative things about it, so we've been conditioned to believe that having autism is like the worst thing ever, when it's not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, there's conversations that have been had in this house about that.
Mm-hmm.
Just people's viewpoints on it. My day job, I work with individuals with intellectual disabilities. So I work with a few individuals from time to time with autism, and you know one of the guys I work with directly on a daily basis. It's pretty clear with him, but I have other individuals that I encounter that you'd never guess it.
Right.
So it's one of those things again where putting the awareness out there opens up a lot of different avenues for people to express themselves, to open up, and for others to understand as well. Because I think that's a huge thing with this page is like for those who may not identify, they still get the opportunity to read up on it and see different viewpoints and understanding points. So thank you for that and just strengthening this community because you know that's what I feel like the jiu-jitsu community is about. It's about um expanding our community and also understanding and embracing each other as well. So thank you, bro.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, I feel like society as a whole is becoming more accepting of different people like and neurodiversity. And so I think that's starting to, touch on the jiu-jitsu community as well. Like, we can't keep going on with how things were. It's just not sustainable.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Blue, it's been great talking with you, and I would love to have you back on again and further our conversations. I actually have been recently trying to do, different like would you rather's or rapid fire questions at the end, but I didn't have time to, set anything up for you. So I do apologize for that.
That's okay.
But I got you covered for the next episode for sure. I promise. Scout's honor.
Nice. Thank you.
But before we get out of here, do you have any shout outs or mentions that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Let's see. I'd like to shout out my gym, my home gym, Compound Jiu-Jitsu in Denver and Centennial. I also would like to shout out to High Altitude Martial Arts. That's where I teach at. I personally want to thank Professor Cody there too, because he's given me the opportunity to teach and help bring that spark back. And also just my friends in general in jiu-jitsu who've supported me. Thank you.
Good. And without, again, that community, this gets a lot more difficult. So, big shout out to all of them. So thank you to them.
Thank you.
And for the listeners here, thank you. If you have any questions, concerns, criticisms, anything, feel free to reach out. You can find me at bjj.wiki on Instagram. You can also find me at Off the Mats Podcast on Instagram. You can email me at many of the emails that might be attached to my social medias, maybe not, because I'm going to be honest, I don't be knowing those email addresses. I had Mike Ling reach out to me via email. He'll be coming up in February. We're going to do a Nerdcast episode. We're going to talk about Star Wars, so I'm excited about that. Well, let me rephrase that. He's going to talk about Star Wars. I'm going to try to talk about X-Men. I'm going to try to talk about comic books, but we're going to see, whose nerdum is stronger in that regard. But he reached out via email when he came on previously. So obviously the emails work. I just don't know what they be. So just get a hold of me via social media, I want to give a big shout out, though, to my crew over there at Nerd Rage Radio. Bobby, Chris, Joe, Marilyn, Phil, Ricky Ticky, all you guys. Thank you. If it were not for Nerd Rage Radio, I wouldn't be doing a podcast. So thank you to those guys. I do appreciate them. And I got to get back over there. I haven't been on in a while. So I got to show up probably in February, Black History Month and stuff. Always try to make my mark. Also, it's my birthday, so try to show up there. So big shout out to them over there. Also, I want to give a shout out to my other podcast. So you like horror? If you like scary movies, go check that out. We are into 2025 now, and our theme this year is going to be remakes versus originals. So I did an episode with Marilyn, Phil, and Joe from Nerd Rage Radio, and we're just basically talking about introducing that theme and the various original films and the remakes that have accompanied them over the years. And this year I think we're going to be doing like Amityville remake versus original, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, obviously, because that's my favorite horror franchise. We got some big ones in there. I actually put it up to a vote on the Instagram page, and the listeners got in there. And Nosferatu just released in theaters on Christmas Day, and I've been hearing a lot of good things. So that wasn't in the vote, but I think I'm going to go ahead and make that happen for next October. We're going to do that original from 1922, 1979, and the 2024 remake. So we're going to do a triple feature on that jump off. So actually, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to have two guests do it because they really love it. So I'm like, Amy, Jen, you all want to do that one? So. But the point is, we're going to be talking about a lot of cool stuff this year. So if you like scary movies, go check out that podcast and go follow us on Instagram. So You Like Horror. All the words are separated by underscores. It's a lot of fun over there too. And last but not least, I want to give a big shout out to my guest here, Ms. Blue Mays, the neurodivergent grappler herself. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences, your insight, and just letting us know it's okay. It's okay to, do jujitsu and be a little different. Because I feel like if you're doing jujitsu, you're a little different anyway. So,
Yes,
and it's okay.
yes. Thank you so much.
And you guys know what it is. As always, I love you guys. Thank you. You guys keep listening, and we're gonna definitely keep making these shows. Thank you, everybody, and ciao.
They with it. Now let me sing a song.